Thanks, Lieutenant Colonel Barger. I greatly appreciate it. As Colonel Barger just mentioned, I have the pleasure of being the Adjutant General for the Kentucky National Guard. It may sound a little trite, but it's a genuine honor to serve with both the men and the women in green and in blue in the Kentucky National Guard. For a lot of the events that we've recently been through, sure as heck, they were not events that were anticipated a few months ago. Just about 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of speaking to incoming class brand new company commanders and brand new first sergeants. And in doing so, one of the things that we brought up in particular is that if you're in a leadership role, and it doesn't matter if you're an NCO, you're an officer, at what rank or level you are, you're going to be confronted with situations. There are going to be problems that arise that nobody anticipated. And one of the things you do as a leader is resolve those problems. That's what I need from each one of you all who are in a leadership role. I'd also offer that's what you need from me as well. And sure as heck, none of us anticipated dealing with a pandemic a few months ago. We didn't anticipate dealing with some of the civil disturbance issues that have occurred up in Louisville. But we didn't anticipate the Kentucky National Guard getting involved with our state's voting process. And oh, by the way, this is occurring at the same time, but we still have numerous men and women in both the Air and the Army National Guard that deployed overseas, deployed to combative areas as we speak. They're deployed everywhere from EUCOM to CENTCOM to AFRICOM, and doing the job, the mission of the Guard that's expected of us these days. You know, I may have shared with a few of you already, but for some of the previous events that we've been involved with, there have been numerous folks in state government who've come up to me and said, quite simply, that the Guard is the solution to our problems. And, you know, personally, I get a kick out of that. I'd like to think that everybody in our formations would find pleasure in receiving that type of notoriety, because for the quality of the folks that we've got in the Guard today, the way folks execute their missions, whether it's something here in the domestic operations arena or something overseas, whether it's a contingency operation or a named operation, the way we present ourselves certainly makes all the difference and brings a great deal of credibility to the Guard. You know, that I may have shared with some of you a while ago, but at times when I drive home and I'm still in uniform and there are little kids out playing in our neighborhood, they would point at me and there's the Army man. And so, you know, I generally get a kick out of being the Army man, because especially these days, I believe as a result of everybody that we've got in our formations, the quality, the professionalism, just quite simply the pride of being in the Kentucky National Guard is higher than I'd ever seen it, and probably as high as we ever had it in the history of our formations. And again, it's because of each one of you all and that sense of pride and quality of doing your jobs, whether you're AGR, a federal technician, MDay, traditional, all was pulled together as a team, and that's really kind of the neat dynamic, I believe, of the military as a whole. That you're not going to find that type of dynamic in many other organizations, whether they're commercial entities, whether there's some other level of government. And again, I'm biased to the Kentucky National Guard, that I think relative to a lot of our brothers and sisters who are also in uniform, the quality, again, of the folks in our formations is significantly higher. One story I want to share with you all as I go into a couple of comments to elaborate, but this will help identify a little bit about me and my sense of heading up the Kentucky National Guard. But several years ago, when I had the opportunity of being the battalion commander for 1st of the 149th Infantry, I, as a brand new commander, one of our companies was vacant as far as its company commander. So I had the choice of two guys to select for that company command position. I happen to know both of the guys who were available for that position. I had deployed with each one of these folks, so I saw them other than just a 1 weekend, a month type of dynamic. I saw them in a deployed environment. In getting to know these folks, I liked each one of them. I thought well of them. And so really it was kind of a tough choice that I found myself having to make between the two of them. And I was actually kind of stuck for a while. Eventually what I did was really just kind of change my perspective. Okay, don't make the selection based on the individuals, but who did I believe was going to be best for that unit? And it may sound kind of trite, but suddenly the situation became very simple. It is very clear that one was well above the other, and the unit at not only a company level, but at battalion level as well was going to benefit by virtue of that person's leadership. That's the person I went with. It worked out well. They served the company well. They led the company well. They fit into the battalion very well. The point I'm getting at with all of this, and I want everybody to know, like in that situation, what drove my decision is what's best for the organization. I'm not looking to benefit individuals. I'm not looking to take care of friends. I'm not looking to boost folks who haven't necessarily earned the right of a new promotion or new levels of responsibility. What drives the bulk of my decisions, it's what's best for the organization. So keep that in mind for any dealings you've got with me or anything that you see that comes out of our headquarters, because that is really kind of a cornerstone for everything that I address from the point where I became your Adjutant General moving forward. You know, for some of the specific situations we've gotten into, the pandemic, and I don't think any of us, as a matter of fact, I feel pretty confident, none of us a year ago had any idea of our operating in this type of an environment where these are part of our everyday necessity. And yet, in doing so, we've stood up almost 1,000 guardsmen. We still have folks who are engaged today in some aspect of taking care of the communities that we're from, taking care of the state, taking care of our own formations as well. I do not believe that the pandemic environment is going away anytime soon. So just like we're doing now, we're finding alternate ways of still getting things done. Because no matter what we do as we're engaged with this, the life of a soldier, the life of an airman, the responsibilities that we've got both domestically and overseas, they're going to continue regardless of dealing with a pandemic. The one other situation, which sure as heck is unique to the Guard, as a matter of fact, I'm aware of only 4 states that have engaged in any type of voting support. A number of you might realize that we were involved this past June with the primary election we had into the state, and we had guardsmen who stood up across numerous of our 120 counties throughout the state to engage with the county clerks and support their operations, as the folks who typically get engaged with the efforts and the workload at a voting precinct or poll, that those folks were in the at-risk categories for much of the pandemic concerns. So quite literally, we had everybody from the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state, the director of the board of elections, thanking the Guard and all of you folks who were directly engaged with that, with our efforts, because quite simply, even as scaled back as it was done, that they couldn't have done it without us. You know, the third thing that was really kind of an anomaly for us, and certainly didn't anticipate it either, is our response to civil disturbance issues, and in particular focused up in Louisville. But we did this twice during the past few months. The first time at the very end of May and into the beginning of June. and then subsequently, as I think a lot of you are tracking, just having occurred a few or 2 weeks ago, as a matter of fact. Those types of situations, and I've been contacted by numerous folks, some of the past senior leadership that we've had for the Kentucky Guard, some senior leadership well outside of the Guard. As a matter of fact, during the last couple of weeks, what we engaged with in Louisville was being tracked not only at the 4-star chief of the National Guard Bureau level, it was being tracked at the DA level, it was being tracked by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, it was being tracked by the Secretary of Defense himself, as each one of those offices sent inquiries through the National Guard Bureau directly to us to find out what we were doing, how we were doing it, and what our plans were for engaging with it. And as we were able to progress through day one of the recent civil disturbance that occurred, I believe as a result of the planning that we went through, where we were well integrated with the Louisville Metro Police Department, where we were well integrated with the Kentucky State Police, where we were also integrated with several federal agencies who came down to engage with the security of the city during the course of these events. And quite simply, I genuinely believe that as a result of the planning that led up to our response with this, let alone the execution of it, that in itself resulted in it being much less of a protest or a violent criminal or vandalism situation than it could have been. Some of you all are probably tracking, but just to share with you as well, a number of the folks who were arrested up in Louisville by the LMPD, that these folks were carrying backpacks, and as their backpacks were opened up, it was revealed that they had hammers in these backpacks, they had handguns in the backpacks, they had homemade incendiary devices, but they never used them. And I would offer the reason that they never used them was because of the security environment that was all around them, whether it was brought about by LMPD, by the National Guard, by the state police, by any of the federal agencies, that simply prevented the actions of some of these individuals and the circumstances becoming, pun intended, a more explosive type of dynamic. A couple of other comments that I want to get into as well, but I just want to share with you that as I do wrap this up, we are going to have a opportunity for a Q&A session, and so whatever chat line you're following with this, just go ahead and type in any question that you may have, and it'll come to me and we will answer it, time contingent for this event itself. One of the things I want to emphasize, and this is coming directly from a conversation with General Hokanson, the Chief of the National Guard Bureau, literally just a couple of days ago. But I believe for all of us who are part of the National Guard, whether you're in the Air National Guard, the Army National Guard, we join to be part of the military. We join to become part of the team serving here with the National Guard. And in spite of some of the other events that I've just recently described, from the pandemic to the civil disturbance response to the voting and whatever else is going to pop up in our future, that our primary purpose for being here is still the war fight. We are stood up in our formations, we are equipped, we are formed, we are trained for the prospect of deploying overseas to engage in some type of operation in the defense of the security of this country. That is foremost and the primary reason for our existence. That has not changed, nor will it change, but I want everybody in our formations to have that understanding, because I do believe with the heavy reliance on the National Guard for some of the domestic operation incidents that I've just recently identified, some folks may lose focus. But again, it's to the quality of the folks that we've got in the National Guard and the Kentucky National Guard in particular, that I think we're able to maintain that balance, again, of having soldiers and airmen deployed to overseas operations simultaneously with still taking care of business here at home. One of the things, and a few of you may have heard me speak of this, and I don't know to what extent it's coming across to the folks at this junction, but especially in this training environment and this operational environment, and just for the prospect of taking care of our own, to me, one of the big things that I really look at is the development of our folks. You know, you hear it said taking care of people, or looking out for soldiers, or looking out for airmen, but it generally is a focus for me. And from the first meeting I had with the staff as the new Adjutant General coming in to today, we're still very much looking for programs that will enhance, improve the quality of the folks that we've got, and simply build them up as a force. As an example of this, and some of y'all may already be tracking, but I want to emphasize one of the things we're looking to do to the greatest extent possible is what I call a Title 10, Title 32 swap. That, you know, during the progression of a career, if you're an active duty military member, at some point in time, you're going to go off and serve a duty at the Pentagon. For some folks, they look forward to that. For some other folks, it's a penance that they feel that they have to endure for the progression of their tour. For a lot of folks into the state National Guard, simply that is not something we do. And to have any assignments outside of the State Guard other than a deployment quite simply don't occur, other than maybe a temporary ADOS type of assignment. But what I'm getting at for any of you, and whether you're in a green uniform, whether in a blue uniform, as that there are opportunities to seek out the Title 10 tours. My thinking is that if we send somebody off to a Title 10 tour, that they progress, they develop professionally, they establish new contacts, and when they come back to Kentucky, that they bring back with them a new network, if you will, that can benefit not only them individually, but benefit the organization. They come back with new knowledge that helps them in their professional growth. And say worst case scenario, for whatever reason, somebody decides that they're not going to come back and they stay with whatever Title 10 entity or tour. Well, we've lost them, but at the same time, we've expanded the Kentucky network of folks outside the Kentucky Guard. So that's one thing I'm looking to do as well, is simply expand beyond our state borders, expand into other military entities where our folks can develop from that experience, where additionally the Kentucky National Guard as a whole can benefit from the contacts that folks develop through those experiences. One of the aspects I want to get back to for a moment, you know, it came to light for me a few weeks ago that for some of the civil disturbance activities, and in particular those that occurred towards the beginning into the summer, the killing of George Floyd, the killing of Breonna Taylor, you know, those have greatly impacted not only our community, but the entire country at this junction. I think everybody's aware of what's taken place as a result of it, and certainly here in Kentucky in the near term, because of what occurred with Breonna Taylor. One of the things that I think it's kind of an ugly dynamic, but it's been revealed more so as a result of those incidents, is an element of racism. I don't believe that racism has ever really gone away. It may be tamped down at times, but it's the type of dynamic that's just kind of simply part of the human condition that quite simply can rise up again with very little prodding. Towards that end, and some of you all may already be tracking, but with Brigadier General Chuck Walker in the Air Guard, he and I are going to be getting together to set up a series of videotapes. And simply we're going to have a Q&A session to address the issue and share our thoughts and enable those to be broadcast across the entire force, because it is an issue. It's an issue that's in the communities that we live and work in. And coming back to the dynamic of the military, you know, from my perspective, as I already said, everything we do in the military is team-oriented. You know, I generally do not care where you come from, what color, religion, sexual orientation you may be, but it's bringing folks together from a variety of backgrounds to build that team and function as a team. And whether we're responding in any of the operational scenarios I've already described, that's the neat thing about the military. And that's why I think we gain the respect that we do, not only in the communities that we live and serve in, but throughout government and really across the country. A number of you have seen and of the esteem that several or a variety of career professions are deemed to the general public, and this is going back decades. And I've seen it for 20, 30 years or so at this point, that the military, every time it gets published, is ranked at the very top. That the military as a career field, as a profession, it's held in highest esteem of all career professions in this country. And that is part of the team dynamic that we bring to it. And so in maintaining that team dynamic as well, that bringing this together, whether it's the teamwork or my focus on the career and professional development of the soldiers and airmen, it's creating or building upon or further enhancing the dynamic of our being a solid meritocracy with not just the National Guard, but the Kentucky National Guard in particular. And so that's coming up as a dynamic, as I mentioned, that General Walker and I are going to continue to work on and improve with it. And just shortly, we'll get to questions as they've come in. But the final thing that I think I'd want to share with you at this junction, you know, again, whether you're full-time into the Guard, whether you're M-Day or traditional, we can be as professional as we want to be. You know, when we go back home after a duty day, when we go back home after a drill weekend, or after any sort of a training event, let alone a deployment, you know, our families know we're into the military. Our neighbors, our communities know we're into the military. And whether we're in uniform or not, the message I'm striving to get across to everybody is that we're representative of the Kentucky National Guard, whether we're in uniform or out of uniform. Folks know it. So just be cognizant of how you present yourself, how you conduct yourself when you're out in the community, because each and every one of us has that role of representing the Guard to the respective communities that we come from. And that's what really further enhances the image of the Guard here in Kentucky. And in particular, it inspires other folks who'd want to be like us and to join our ranks, whether on the Army side or the air side. I've got some questions that are coming up. One that I'll go ahead and just lead in myself. It's something that has been presented to me on a couple of different occasions as I've spoken with folks, but it may seem quite simple, but it's simply, well, what are your favorite books, or what do you like to read most? And what I'd share with you, there are two in particular. One is titled Once an Eagle. Some of you all might be familiar with it. As a matter of fact, I believe it's been on the professional development reading list across all the services for a number of years at this junction. It's fiction, but it's written on the values and the morals of a career soldier, and as that person progresses through their career and the situations that they get confronted with, and more than once, that some of you may be aware of the old wrist bracelets, the WWJD, or What Would Jesus Do? Well, I would often think during the course of my career, WWDD, What Would Damon Do? Sam Damon was the main character in this book, so I think it's a good example of not only character development, but values and the application of them to the military through both a peacetime and a wartime narrative. The other book that I would share with you, it's one titled Tribes, and some of you may be familiar with it or not. It starts out addressing really what the kind of the social and the cultural dynamic was like with American Indian tribes. And it cites an example where with some Indian tribes, as they captured natives of other tribes, or even as they captured white settlers, and the settlers would get incorporated into the dynamics of that tribe, then eventually through whatever sort of mechanism, they gained their freedom to go back to their previous communities, and they found the Indian tribe community and the culture, and in particular the purposeful aspect of being a member of a tribe there, far greater than they found in their previous communities, and in some cases they actually went back to where they became a member of the Indian tribe. But subject to any other questions, it's been a pleasure for me to address you. Go ahead.
So we had a couple of questions from the field. The first is if you can give an update on where the C-130J model is in the process for selection for if Kentucky's still in the running, or if you can just give an update on the C-130J model.
Sure. If you all weren't able to hear that, the question was where are we, the Kentucky Air National Guard in particular, in the process of receiving the C-130J model and what that process is at this junction. And some of you may be aware that presumably a decision was to have been made on that last month. And the selection criteria for where the C-130J was going to be housed and how it was going to be housed and based, it changed at one point. And what led to that change, I really do not know, but it changed back again. And the bottom line at this junction is that, yes, the Kentucky Air Wing is still positioned in terrific shape to not just be one of the recipients, but the prospect of being the first of these new models. I do not expect a decision to come out of the Secretary of the Air Force office until late December at this junction, but our positioning to be the recipients is very strong at this point.
Sir, another question from the field from the Kentucky Army National Guard. New training guidance has just been published with an emphasis on big P, little t. And how do you see this affecting soldiers' training going forward, and how units will conduct training?
The question was new Army training guidance that's out there with an emphasis on a big P and little t. And what that effectively does is kind of prioritize what we're doing, but just as I was mentioning to you a bit ago, that I look in particular to the professional development of the folks that we've got in our formations, and the emphasis on everything from schools to opportunities where they can expand their knowledge base, their experience base. You know, the bottom line with any of our formations, that the one thing that's consistent will be out of the soldier or the airman in those formations. And so subsequently, I'd offer that there are two things that really matter with all of our units. It's the quality of the service member themselves, and it's the quality of the leader. And as both of those are in good shape, you have a good unit. It'll execute whatever mission gets assigned to them well. And so quite simply, the building block is all of our soldiers and airmen across the entire Kentucky National Guard.
Sir, we have one more question from the field from Lieutenant Colonel Kraus. In the future, do you see an increase in opportunities for airmen to hold leadership positions on your joint staff?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
At this junction, and keep in mind, and that actually leads into another question. I remember when we first stood up at the Joint Force Headquarters that we made an attempt here in the Kentucky Guard to have a J staff, to have a G staff, to have an A staff, and eventually that didn't come about as I think it was initially envisioned about 20 years ago at this junction. That I'd share with you as well, and again, this is from speaking with General Hokanson just a couple of days ago. He is striving, although I think it's a challenge that it'll be interesting to see how it comes about, but to take at the NGB level the A staff on the Air Guard side to the G staff on the Army side and just make one staff. So you wouldn't have the redundancy of having to go through multiple offices just to get, say, one type of action, whether it's personnel related or operational related. And so in following that example, again, you know, that we are a Joint Force Headquarters, it might be a little bit more in name at this junction than actually having the slots and having the funding to organize it. But we do have a number of folks up here on the Joint Force Headquarters, both green and blue, and I know just by personal experience that was not our dynamic just even 20 years ago. So at this junction, you know, it's the Air Guard has its mission, the Army Guard has its mission. There are some areas where we do overlap in training and we can benefit one another in that training environment. But the more synergy or symbiotic relationship that we've got, again, it just helps to improve the organization. So I think kind of the flip side to answer the question that was just posed to me, I have no impediment or objection to anybody working on the Joint Force Headquarters staff, regardless of which component they're coming from. I'm looking for talent and ability. That benefits the organization, and as I just shared with you a little bit ago, what benefits the organization is my goal. So I guess at this junction, those are all the questions. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be your Adjutant General, to serve with the Kentucky National Guard. Again, I am biased towards us of our 54 fellow states and territories. We are, and I know by personal experience, and many of you do as well, one of the best that are out there. So, and wrapping up, I just want to say thank you for everything that you do for our organization, and continue to push yourselves to quite simply be as good as you want to be. That said, I salute each one of you. Thank you.